it's fascinating how many people, especially women I work with, that are empty nesters and are going, okay, now what? Who am I anymore? What am I doing? And that does cause a lot of stress, right, within them. Like, how do I channel, my gifts and talents? I focused on being a great mom, and now there's what's left for me. So, oh my gosh, I love your idea, the first 5.
Welcome to Imperfect Mommying. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we're actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can all still be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Mommying, and I'm your host, Alysia Lyons, and we have a very special guest today, Kristine Genovese. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, I'm so delighted to be with you today. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I love your energy. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, that's really good to hear, because I do work with energy. So I am the creator of the Soul Intelligence Method, which is a method that actually helps people get to the root cause of underlying illness, conditions, challenges, because it's a method that allows me to move mental, emotional, and even physical energy up and out of the body that's caused by unresolved trauma or self-limiting beliefs or old patterns, all kinds of things that keep us from healing completely. So I'm really the mental and emotional component in functional medicine. So I partner with a lot of healthcare professionals to help people heal.
I love this because I am always talking about how we need to take a holistic approach to health and wellness and not just look at the symptoms and treat the symptoms, because that's what we do in traditional medicine when there's so much there's like things are so much deeper than all of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, part of what I do besides being, the creator of the Soul Intelligence Method, I'm also the Chief Growth Officer for Nutritional Frontiers, which is a health and wellness company that works in functional medicine with healthcare providers, providing them the nutraceuticals to help people heal naturally in the physical. But sometimes our bodies need, a little physical help to get it moving. And so I kind of describe it as, a chiropractor you go to see to get a biomechanical adjustment, and you come to see me for a bioenergetic adjustment. And that's the best way for me to describe it. But basically, this works on science. It's not woo-woo. It is, although some people might look at it that way, but it's based in the science called bioenergetics. And that is the correlation between your physical well-being and your mental and emotional well-being. So it stands to reason that if you're not feeling great physically, mentally, emotionally, you're probably not doing so hot. It's kind of like common sense to me. But believe it or not, that was documented in the 1950s by Dr. Alexander Lyons. So I have this process that allows me to use, believe it or not, a book of charts and a pendulum to help shift this stuff up and out of the body, and to really get to what those underlying root causes are. Because if you don't, essentially you'll go to the doctor, and if you think about what you do with the doctors, right, you're not just telling them what's physically going wrong. They're always asking you about, well, what's going on at home? What's going on at work? What's going on with kids? What's going on in your relationship? Right? It's all this other stuff, because when you start looking at what causes people to not feel well, the primary things, 3 out of the top 4 we can control. They're all about lifestyle. It's about nutrition. Like, what are we eating? What are we feeding the body? Toxicity, like, who are we around? What are we listening to? What are we putting in our general minds? So, and physical body, all the toxicity we have to manage. Stress, Biggin, right? I don't know one person who doesn't experience stress in their life unless they're like a yogi up on the mountain. And even then they might get cold. But anyway, and then the last one is genetics. And that is the least amount of, like it's the smallest part of the other three. So it's cool. We can actually fix that. But what we have to do is figure out what it is, because a lot of times we don't know what's causing us not to feel well. And that's where my method comes in. It actually gets into the subconscious mind where all this stuff is stored. All our mental and emotional distress is stored. I think our physical body is actually a barometer. So when something goes wrong in the physical, it's your body going, hey, time to pay attention to this. We got to fix it. You know, something's going on. The subconscious mind is really what's running the show 95% of the time. It blows my mind to think that only 5% of our mind is the conscious mind. That's the part that does all that strategizing, thinking, calculating, like we're always up in our heads. And the Heart Math Institute's actually mapped your brain. There's a 2-foot wide energy field around your brain, where there's a 6-foot wide energy field around your heart. So when we think about, you know, everything starts with idea, IQ, the inspiration, right? You got to have that electric spark in the electromagnetic field. But what magnetizes things to you and brings it in are feelings. And so in the body, emotion is supposed to be energy in motion. And when it's not, when it gets stuck or traps or pools, that's when it causes dis-ease in the body or dysfunction in the body or dissonance in your frequency, right? Even Einstein said the future of medicine is frequency way back in the day. And that's really what we're talking about. You know, I think people forget, you know, if you think back to like our elementary school days when we learned we're all protons, neutrons, electrons in this electromagnetic field, right? And that we actually have electricity running through our bodies. And I think people forget about that because we see each other. So we see ourselves in this corporal physical form, as opposed to thinking about how the heck am I seeing you through Zoom right now, right? You know, it's energy transfer.
Yeah.
So that's essentially why things get stuck in people, places, or things. And energy can get stuck in your physical, your mental, or your emotional body.
Yeah, which is, I mean, the first thing I said is I like your energy. And I don't know that I've ever said that to anybody. And I mean, maybe I'm just more aware of it now than I have been in the last, 4 years of the podcast. But it was just like, it just kind of jumped out at me and popped into my head to say. And most things that are in my head come out of my mouth.
Awesome. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and this idea of the energy in motion, like I've heard that before. The emotion needs to come out. And one thing I was talking about this morning, I just launched a community for moms, and it's called The First Five. And my original intention was like, if in the first 5 years of parenthood, motherhood, we could create some really good, healthy habits, then as we get older and we have, empty nest, we're not trying to wonder who we are anymore as a human. If we keep this connection or create this connection to self when our children are younger, then we're also modeling it for them throughout the ages. And we have, in my utopia world, we have this better raising experience in motherhood, because I know that it's difficult.
Well, it's really interesting. A lot of my, I do this work with healthcare professionals in particular, and then also, with their patients. And it's fascinating how many people, especially women I work with, that are empty nesters and are going, okay, now what? Who am I anymore? What am I doing? And that does cause a lot of stress, right, within them. Like, how do I channel, my gifts and talents? I focused on being a great mom, and now there's what's left for me. So, oh my gosh, I love your idea of The First Five. Now, my boys are grown. I have grown boys now. So
yeah, And my girlfriend, who's in the first 5 years of empty nest, said, hey, you should do first 5 years of school, first 5 years of adolescence, and then first 5 years of empty nest as well. So that's part of the community. But my original idea was like the first 5 years of motherhood. Anyway, my first member, her biggest struggle was, how do I help my kids with emotional management? And my brain just went, like it starts with you having this emotional intelligence as well, because it's the intro of my podcast is, the better person essentially is the better person I became, the better mom I became. And they're watching the show, they're not listening to the lectures. It's in the micro movements that we do. So when we as moms understand this energy and motion, then we're teaching our children to have energy and motion. And like I said, when something's in my head, it comes out of my mouth. I'm a little distracted at the moment because my son's school called and there's a text message from him. I'm safe, and I'm like, oh God, what happened? So
oh my goodness,
little what's going on in my head right now, but
no problem.
So, but I love everything that you were saying, and I also, it didn't escape my notice that you use a pendulum, because when I was learning the body code, if you mentioned chiropractor, and I have always said, like, we need to align our emotions as much as we align our body, but the stigma out there is chiropractors are charlatans because you have to keep coming back. And I'm like, listen, you got to keep taking your car back to the mechanic to get your tires and balanced and rotated. And they're not charlatans? Like,
well, that's
some of them might be.
Well, it's kind of like an energetic massage, right? Like, how often do you need that? Like, if you understand the whole concept that we're these energetic beings, right? And, people can see the energy around some people. That's what they call the aura, right? You can actually see the waves vibrating off of someone. You're around someone that's pretty intense or pretty dark, pretty heavy, you're going to need to have an adjustment, because you're going to wind up processing those emotions. The reason I found out I was as empathic as I was as a kid is I didn't enjoy being around my dad. And I said to my mom, I feel like I change when I'm around him, and I don't like how I feel. And it took me until being in my 40s to finally understand, oh, you were picking up on all of his emotions, all of his self-loathing, all of his self-hatred, all of that stuff. And that's why you felt like you physically changed, right? Emotion is very powerful. And the other thing to remember is emotion is energy, right? Everything is energy. And once energy is created, it can't be destroyed. It has to be transmuted. It has to go somewhere. So do you have to do a soul intelligence session? Not necessarily. You could exercise, right? You can meditate. You can pray. You can do a lot of things, dance to move energy or shift it up and out of your body. But if you really need to, like for people who are experiencing especially chronic illnesses, right? And 95% of the visits, I believe today, the doctor's offices are for chronic illness, which means it's something that won't go away. It's something that won't heal. It won't get better. Or you fix one thing and then something else goes wrong. So when you're in that kind of a state, you really need to get to what that underlying emotional root cause is in order to be able to shift it up and out of the body. And so I wrote a book called Healing Through Soul Intelligence. This is my book. I don't know if you can see.
Love it.
It is an LA Tribune bestseller, and I just got a book award from Best Holistic Life magazine as 2025 Book of the Year. Super freaking cool. And it's all about, I know, right? So it's all about my method. It's all about stories and healing stories of doctors that I've helped, right? And like even the doctor that wrote my foreword to my book is a triple board certified MD, right? So I think traditional medicine is finally understanding that there is a link, to people's mental and emotional wellness. It's becoming, if you think about it, the number one killer in our country has been heart disease for, forever, right? 25 years, something like that. It is being surpassed now. If you think about all of the brain-related diseases we have, if you add them all up between dementia, Alzheimer's, autism, all of those things, and that's because of the inflammation in the brain, right? And what's going on there, as opposed to just the inflammation in the heart. And you have to understand what causes that inflammation. Somebody with dementia is trying to escape this reality. Life's become too much, right? There are different things that go on in our physical bodies where you can get to the underlying emotional root cause. And I usually talk a lot about the stomach, the gut. And that's because that's where your stomach does two things, okay? Your gut, it stores food and it processes food. The other thing that it does is it also stores emotions and processes emotions. And so if you don't do that, if you don't process emotions, that's when things get a little bit hairy. Right?
Yeah.
So, GI issues, and that's usually where functional medicine doctors start. Even Hippocrates said 2,000 years ago, everything begins and ends in the gut. And here's why. It's also like your third chakra. I don't know if you know the major energy centers in the body, or your audience does, but you've got one at the root.
I do.
Yeah, I bet you do. In your sacral. And then the third one, right, is in your gut, in your stomach area. And from a holistic perspective, the solar plexus governs like self-esteem, confidence, how you show up in the world, our ability to process all of our emotions and experiences. And I think people can relate to, like, you get bad news and the first place you might feel it is like a gut punch, right? Or if you're about to make a presentation, you get really nervous, you feel the butterflies in your stomach, right? That's all related to you and how you feel. And that's usually the first place that things start, right? But it's also the gateway to healing. Like 80% of our immune system is actually located in our gut. Why do you think we have so many autoimmune diseases today? Right? The gut actually produces 90% of our serotonin. That's the happy hormone, right? The feel-good neurotransmitter that affects your mood and your sleep and your overall happiness. So, the gut also has these like 100 trillion microorganisms in there, like all the bacteria. You got good bacteria and bad bacteria that helps break down the food. And so when the gut isn't functioning properly, it tends to like have fissures in it and cause leaks and all kinds of stuff where it gets in your bloodstream and starts running amok. But from an energetic perspective, it's typically difficulty digesting life, like feeling stuck in a pattern of limitation or worry or guilt, not processing our emotions, and that's the seed of our relationships. The tensions that we find in the digestive system, it's really like the fear of doing without, like the fear of lack, or like conflicts with your identity. So when you talked about, the 5, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of people who are like women, especially, who are going through that empty nest syndrome, and it hits them right in the stomach, right here. Like, gosh, what am I going to do? Because they've lost their identity in some way, and they have to redefine what's my new identity. And so one of the things I usually recommend is like, think back to what you love to do as a kid, right? You love like art or music or writing or, helping others. And how can you pull some of that, of what you loved as a kid into today to reshape what you want to do next?
Yeah. It's funny that if you're not watching the video, or we're on speaker view, so you don't see me, but I'm like nodding along with you, because that's where I tell people to start. Like, what is it that you liked when you were a kid? And I remember, I have one son, and 13 years ago I was pregnant with him, and I remember I got put on bed rest. And during my bed rest, I was like, I better cross stitch as much as I can, because I'm never going to cross stitch again. Like, cross stitching is my favorite go-to craft. And
that used to be mine when I lived up north.
Yeah. And I and then as soon as he was born, I kept going. But I remember having that thought, I better do it because I'm never going to have the chance to do it again. And I'm glad that I kept doing it. It's something that it's like an active meditation for me. It's very calming to my system. And I love giving it away to people as gifts and whatnot. So it's something that I've held on to in spite of like the societal pressure of I'm not allowed to have anything that's for me anymore.
Oh my gosh, right? I think that's a big one, you know, and I work with people a lot on self-care and what does that really mean?
Yeah.
Right? Because people naturally want to give to other people, right? Like we naturally want to help others. But when you do it for yourself, you're like, oh, is that selfish? You know, versus self-care. Like, what does that really mean? You need to have something of your own that you're proud of that you can share with your kids, right? For me as a kid, I loved playing sports. I was always super active. You know, I played like softball and I skied and I played field hockey. If, you know, I don't know, not everybody plays field. I think they play soccer now. That's how old I am. Anyway, swam, like all kinds of stuff. So as a grown-up, I'm like, well, what sport can I play? So I remember in my 30s, I picked up playing tennis. And so that's kind of a lifetime sport. And I still play it competitively today. I actually, believe it or not, in my 50s, for the last 8 years, I've had at least one tennis team I've played on win locally and go on to play at states in the state of Florida, which is a pretty active tennis state. So I'm still out there doing it. But for me, that is a great release because it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional. And I have to think about tennis the whole time. I can't think about anything else or I'll get hit with the ball. So, you know, it's kind of a great release for me in every which way. But like you were talking about your needlepoint or cross stitch being a meditation for you, that's really something that I derive a lot of enjoyment from. And it also helps me move that energy.
Yeah. I have this workshop about self-care without guilt has been coming up quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. I got chills when you said that. That is a home run right there.
Yeah. Thank you. So, okay. Universal confirmation. Like I need to, that's my workshop that I need to put out there.
But you also remember, right? Like you can't pour from an empty cup, right? If you're just stressed to the max, you're exhausted, you don't have it. You're not going to be a great mom or parent or, you know, lover or, you know, intimate partner in any way to your spouse. Like you don't have anything left. Yeah. And then if you think about it, when you pour in your own cup, then you're energized and then you are excited about, you know, doing things with the children or doing things with your spouse. Absolutely. You know, you're in a very different space.
Yeah.
So I think people need to define what is that for them? You know, is that I take 15 minutes for me every morning and I meditate, you know, and journal? Or is it I go for a walk out in nature with no cell phone just to reconnect with the divine of all that is? Or, you know, what does that, it doesn't necessarily mean I got to go get the mani-pedi, although I do like that.
Yes. And that's kind of the workshop is like redefining what self-care is for you, because it's really, it boils down to energy in versus energy out. And the things that we do that are energy in, it doesn't have to be, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's like we pour out, but if we do something for ourselves, that's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you said 15-minute meditation. That when I set an intention to do that, there's a whole different energy to my day than when I don't.
Right.
Right. And it's, you know, your filling of the cup doesn't have to be like I spend 8 hours serving the kids and now I'm going to spend 8 hours serving myself. It's not that 1-to-1 ratio. And I think that people kind of feel like there is, like, in order to do something for myself, in order to fill my cup, it has to take this long amount of time. It's kind of that fallacy of like, if I start crying, I'll never stop. I hear that a lot, right? If I start crying, I will never stop. When really we're like pressure cookers sometimes, where if you just, it builds up and builds up and builds up, and then you untwist the cap and it goes, psst,
Mm.
and then it's like, right?
Yeah.
And then we feel better. And unfortunately, in motherhood, sometimes the psst ends up being to the kids.
Right.
And then we feel bad about it.
I can think about, I was a single mom at one time, and, having the two kids, and I had 2 boys, still do. They're just, 33 and 29 now. But okay, when they were little, okay, I want to say like 9 and 5, something in that neighborhood. I remember one morning, the one son didn't want one kind of cereal. I had already poured in the bowl. Fine. Okay, I'll pour it back in, get him the other one. I don't want that one. I want the first one. So I give him the first one. Then he didn't want that. So then I freaked out and like threw the cereal box like across the room, and then made them clean it up because I lost my, they will never let me forget that I did it. Remember when you lost it over the cereal? I'm like, yeah, because so-and-so was difficult. Yes, I do remember that.
But when you have kids, then you'll understand.
Exactly. I think that's one of the reasons why he only has a dog. The younger one, they're both married. One has a dog. The other one has 3 children. So it is fun. It is really fun, like to watch them go through their own experiences now. Yeah.
Is there a piece of advice that you want to share with moms listening?
A piece of advice. Oh my goodness. My mom gave me a great piece of advice, especially when I had teenagers. My mom said, God gives you teenagers so that you want them out of your house. So I thought that was a really good way to look at it, because they can be so challenging in their teen years, and I was like, oh yeah, because if they were wonderful, like when they wanted to play with you and hang out, and you would want them to stay with you forever. So I guess it's part of that, getting them to become independent process. But I think, in terms of, thinking about, empty nesting and finding something for you, I think it's really, diving deep into, who are you? Who were you? Who do you want to be? And what do you want this next chapter to look like? And so I think, like we talked about earlier, kind of going back to finding something that you're passionate about, you're excited about, that you can then share with your kids who are now grown and going, oh my God, look what mom did. Mom just wrote a book, which is what they're doing with me now. Yeah. I'm actually also in a movie, which is exciting. It's coming up. It'll be released in the fall. It's called The Pillars of Power. And it is, it is the 20-year anniversary of The Secret. If anybody remembers the movie The Secret, the book The Secret. And so a lot of the major stars that were in it, like Marie Diamond and Brian Tracy and Dr. Joe Vitale, are in it, along with today's transformational experts like myself. And it's all about living your best life. So I hope that would be something that your listeners might want to check out in the fall. It'll be on all the major streaming platforms really soon.
That's awesome. I'm excited about that. I know Lisa Nichols from the round 1, so I don't know if she's in round 2. I would imagine she would want to be part of that. But yeah. So where can what's a book that has been instrumental in your personal development journey?
Well, obviously, The Secret was one of those for me. But I really love a book that's called Does Your Body Lie? And it's all about the underlying emotional root causes of what's going on physically in your body and what are the emotions tied to it. And that's probably one of my favorite ones. And I do list a bunch of resources in my own book, Healing Through Soul Intelligence, in the back that have been really influential in my career too.
Love that. I will be getting a copy of your book because
Yay!
That sounds up my alley. And that's a big reason I like to ask people what's a book that's been transformational for them, because if it resonates with me, then I go get the book. And I'm just always curious about what people are learning and what people are reading. And then where can our listeners find you?
Well, anything they want to learn about me or a book or anything like that is on my website, which is soulintelligencemethod.com. Soul, SOUL, intelligencemethod.com. And I've got free resources on there. If you're interested in my book, you can find it there or on Amazon. I actually went to LA and recorded it on Audible too, which is really kind of fun.
Cool.
I know everyone's like, oh my gosh, I feel like I got a healing because you're reading it. I'm like, I know. Because I had a girlfriend tell me I got Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, once. And I was like, well, the book was okay. And she's like, did you get it on Audible? I go, no. She goes, he reads it. I went, oh my gosh, it was so much better when he read it.
Oh yeah. I'm an Audible person.
Right.
Oh my goodness. And just his voice. And it was interesting. It was interesting too, just listening to it, but I didn't ever sit down and read it. So it's fun.
It was way better on Audible, but but yeah, I'm on Barnes and Noble and Amazon, all things books. And I'm really delighted that you allowed me the opportunity to speak with your listeners. And it sounds like you're doing some incredible programming for moms.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate what you're doing in the world and for your time and being here and for your energy.
Well, thank you. Well, I hope everything works out with your son today and that there was no major calamity that you've got to clean up later.
Yeah. I just skimmed the email and it's like a weird school crisis, but everything's okay. And so I'm sure he wants me to pick him up. So, but
fabulous.
What are we going to do with this world? Let's heal it.
Amen, sister. Yeah. And that is something to think about. You know, when you do your own healing, remember, it's like the butterfly effect. So when you do work on you, you don't know what kind of a ripple effect that has, you know, across the world, and to help raise the consciousness. So I encourage everybody to do exactly as you said, self-care without guilt.
Yes, I love that. And we will have another episode of Imperfect Mommying for you all coming next week. And until we meet again, keep healing. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Mommying. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit AlysiaLyons.com. That's ALYSIALYONS.com. And until we meet again, keep healing.